This webinar was pieced into 3 sections for viewing ease. This is section 2. In section 2, they will discuss finding inspiration, encouragement, and community.
So on to our next goal and discussion. We're going to talk about finding inspiration, encouragement, and community. The reality is that we are all in this together. And to find this inspiration, encouragement, and community, we need to, first of all, implode the unrealistic societal expectations that define what it means to be a good caregiver and worker. We need to speak our truths to break isolation and guilt and shame, and we need to support each other. The reality is that we're all subjected to societal expectations and pressures about what it means to be a good caregiver, a good worker, a good community member, and increasingly a good engaged citizen. There's a lot of pressure on all of us. And often what it means to be a good caregiver and be a good worker can be in conflict. And when these conflicts happen, and we're pulled in all different directions, it can lead to, us again feeling like there's something wrong with us, or we're failures, or that guilt and shame that a lot of people feel because we feel like we have to look like that low tide, or there's some perfection that we're supposed to be achieving. So let's talk about this with our panel. And I want to have, in particular, Jen in Orlando really, first of all, answer these questions. The first is, in what ways have these kinds of unrealistic social expectations of you as the perfect caregiver, perfect worker, affected you? And how have you been able to really overcome these expectations and redefine a new path forward for yourself?
That's such a great question. I mean, I wonder if you ever truly overcome some of these things. One thing for me, I'd like to recommend a book to the audience. So I'm typing in the chat the name and the author, but in particular, this book is geared towards women. Sorry, guys. But I think for me personally, as a woman and wearing many hats, there are just certain expectations, like that we look a certain way, that we act a certain way, and that we juggle all of these things to perfection. And I don't mean to leave the guys out at all, or anyone in this discussion, but I have felt that a lot in my life. And so this book I'm recommending is called The Orange Line, A Woman's Guide to Integrating Career, Family, Life, and Life. So there it is in the chat for everybody. But that really, for me, it was sort of an awakening. Like, am I trying to keep up with societal expectations that are draining me or hurting me in some way, or stopping me from making progress? And so I think everybody can appreciate that, that statement that's not gendered at all. And so, what expectations are sort of holding us back or keeping us from, feeling good about the progress that we do make?
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add to that, Orlando?
Sure. So, one of the things that I learned early on as an elected official is that you can't please everyone. And I think the mistake that I made was that when I was first elected was that I tried to please everybody. I took it really personal when, a piece of legislation that I proposed didn't pass, or, I read a negative comment about myself on Mass Live. And it wasn't until I accepted the fact that I can't always please everyone that I started to realize that and lift that pressure off of myself. And I started to really enjoy the process and enjoying everything that I was doing, and recognizing those small victories, because I was so focused on the destination that I forgot to enjoy the journey. And that would really be my piece of advice to everyone is, You know,
Mm-hmm.
take a minute to enjoy the ride. It's very stressful to run for public office. When I was campaigning, everything else in my life was pretty much on hold. And when I think back at it, you know, that's one of the mistakes that I made, is that I was too focused on the destination. And so you know, my advice is always remember that you're not going to be able to please everyone, accept the fact that you're not always going to be able to please everyone.
That's great advice. And just for the two of you and anyone else who wants to jump in, what concrete steps do you take in your daily lives to feel less isolated and to build supportive community for yourselves?
I love that question. So part of my job is outreach, but I think I'm in this job because of my personality and because I enjoy making connections. And so some of my favorite places within my business life, my work life, are, you know, the chamber events I go to, being an active member and volunteer of the chambers of commerce. But I think that any way you can get out and connect with other people in an area of life that really interests you, you know, whether that is a reading group or, you know, running for government, local government, a fitness facility where you maybe take a fitness class or something. There's always community within those places, but it's and it took me a while to learn too. It's not about doing everything. It's about finding the thing that really speaks to you and is interesting to you, and you can find community there. And also, you know, finding like-minded people within those communities.
That's great. Orlando, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit different because I have the opposite problem, right? Because I'm always out in the community. I'm always around people. And so I enjoy the little bit of isolation that I get whenever I have it. And, you know, I take advantage of those moments to spend time with my daughter. We travel a lot. My daughter and I are always going to different cities, different places. And I enjoy a little bit of a break from being around too many people.
Mm-hmm.
I think to add to Jen's comment about making connections, what I do is, you know, I like to be open and honest with a big group of people, but I also have my one-on-one connections. My best girlfriend and I connect every Thursday morning around 5 o'clock in the morning for like 15-20 minutes, and we just talk about life, and that always helps us. So I guess the point of all this is that, you know, connections are important, and if you can you know, figure out whether they're, you know, the going out to those community events or having those one-on-one connections, that's really helped me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So thank you so, oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I wanted to say that I kind of just always did my own thing and, you know, connected with my husband and family who aren't around, but just kind of did my own thing and did feel kind of isolated. And then since my child had a diagnosis, I reached out and found a support group of parents with kids on the spectrum. And I go religiously now. Every month, I've been going for 2 years, and I found my tribe, for lack of a better word. It's a place where I can go and commiserate and get some really good advice and just be without having to explain the details of what our family goes through, because those families totally get it, and vice versa. So that's the community I found that has helped me process the big thing in my life, you know, that takes up the most space, which helps the most. So, you know, I don't have any hobbies, and I'm not a very friendly, nice person, so I don't hang out with people. But I found that as a really good place to also, and then process all this other stuff about, you know, expectations and of parenthood and your partner and marriage and everything else. And here are all these other people going through almost the same exact, almost the same exact stuff. And it's like, spectacular to find that community. So you could be someone like me who isn't interested in that kind of stuff, but then you find other people and you make those connections. You can't do it alone. Can't do any of it alone.
Thank you for watching section 2 of the Art of Work-Life Balance webinar. To watch the third and final part of the webinar, where they will discuss practicing self-care to be more effective, please watch the third part of this webinar.